in this Google Doc you'll see our due dates posted as usual, an optional reading that I'm gonna not require, but for those of you who are want to delve a little deeper into the history of art and photography, it's an extremely good resource. It's a survey at the beginning of a larger text called Art and Photography that's really well done. A little bit of directive as to what you're going to be doing for part 1, and then the amount of images that are going to be due for part 2. This project is going to get us a little closer, I hope, to this relationship photography has with art, specifically this being an art photography course. And we're going to do it through 2 steps, research and development, and then practice, which is taking photographs. Now, make note that emulation is part of this project, but also reinvention, which in short term means you're going to choose an artist and you're going to emulate their work, but you're going to then try to make it your own. Right, so when you scroll down here, in your or on your WordPress, you're going to create a little bit of a post or a page. I'm not really concerned with which one you choose to do. If you want to practice making posts and using the blog portion of your website, that's fine. Some of you guys will choose to use that feature and some won't. But I gave you a little bit of an outline of the things that I'm interested in you looking at from this artist that you're going to choose, and describing their form, their technique, their process, the content of the work, and then how do they make their work, which I'll call their working methodology. Now, I describe here a little introduction into research. Again, I don't recommend or require this, but I recommend reading this art survey. I opened it up in a new link here. It's a PDF. You can read either digitally, you can add it to your Google Drive, you can print it, you can download it, however you'd like to read. This is fine, but the text gets progressively smaller and smaller, but goes over the entire intro to this book. Now, back again here, I'm going to suggest for your research that you get at least 3 sources. Again, this is a little bit up to how much work you want to do, but 3 being what I would consider the minimal amount of resources you'd want for this. I think hard copy, actual physical photo books are the best. If you can drum up the resources for that and want to take a little bit more time, that's fine. I know we're in the summer course a little tight for time, so I'm not going to pressure that too much, but I recommend that because a significant portion of art photography actually ends up as a book or is in book form, and so it's really nice to see how books in terms of photography books are made, published, presented, distributed, all of that. It's really helpful in understanding or coming to a deeper understanding of what photography is and art and photography, how they relate. Now, you're part of an iShare network as a student in Harper, which basically means you're connected to a host of libraries in the state, other colleges and universities, and some public libraries you're able to loan library books through. So I put in here a link to iShare and then a video instructions on how to log in and how to find a book on an artist, and then request a copy, which will be sent to a location of your choosing. So if you're close to Harper, you can have it sent to Harper and they'll notify you when it's available and you go pick it up, or it can also be sent to a library closer to your home. It's not required. Again, this is just something I think would be a great idea if you're invested in doing so. Now, below here where it says research for part 1 is a long list of artists who I want you to choose from. I don't want you to steer from here unless you're very adamant about picking someone. I'd prefer that you run that person by me first, so I have some knowledge of who that person is. And mainly I want you to focus on and use these artists because I think they have a significant role to play in art history and photography's historical precedent in art as well. So that's why I'm kind of restricting you to a set of these artists. These are artists that are mentioned in many of the history books and current day, and so it's a good intro, especially to some of you who maybe haven't delved into this subject much. This will be an introduction to kind of the breadth of what photographers do in terms of considering themselves artists or photographers. Now, selecting one of these, doing your research, and again coming back up to this outline here, answering at least these questions here, and then I've made a few more suggestions here. You might envision your presentation outline being an autobiography, giving us some history of who they are, where they were educated, that kind of stuff. A breakdown of their career, looking at types of works. Did they participate in a kind of conversation or discourse that was happening at the time? So, for instance, Picasso's Blue Period was wrapped up in a historic era of what would be called Cubism and abstraction, and so those are important things to understand when presenting some of his work. And then I want you to really focus on a few select and significant works. These can be bodies of work or single photographs, and trying to find out how people talked about them, not only the artists, but maybe critics and how they were received by the world. Now, optional, it's not too formal, but you can, if you want, give us a bibliography. Adding any website links or videos or books to your presentation would be great. Which brings me back to how I like you to create these presentations. I want you to use a format called Google Slides presentation. Google Slides is Google's version of PowerPoint. The reason why I really want you to use it is because we can easily embed this into our WordPress sites, meaning we can create some code that then embeds, we can add to a WordPress page or post, and it will create a visual representation of that presentation in your WordPress. So you don't have to provide or send people outside your website or link to something outside of the website. You keep people on your website. So I've given you some Google support for how to do and create Google Slides, how to use it, how to embed on WordPress. So these are video instructions, and right now I'd like to take you to a really quick demo on how to create presentations most simply. So if you noticed, what I just did there is I went to File, New, and I went to Presentations. If we had just been on Drive, you would see up here New, and it'll give us, once this loads, the option of doing what's called Google Slides. And you can create a blank or from a template. I'll show you what a blank looks like. And essentially, just like with PowerPoint, if you've ever used PowerPoint, you have some themes you can use. You're creating new slides based on a title slide, a section, title and body. You're creating ones with captions, and so on and so forth. So the thing that I really like, say we create a caption, if I wanted to look up okay, let me find a better choice here. Let's see if it'll let me open this. There we go. So I think if we copy this image here and I went to URL and pasted, you'll see that it finds it, and I can insert that image. And I can manipulate the image here if I want, make it bigger or smaller, say pick video, how to understand a Picasso. Select that, and then people can watch that video from within their Google presentation with advertisements, of course. Now, the very last thing here is to look at part 2, our final images. Essentially, now I've given you a host of techniques for editing your images. I'd like, again, you to continue shooting in RAW format. I'd like you to make sure you white balance all your images as an initial edit. And then the creative side of what you want to do from there is up to you, and might be contingent upon who you pick and what you choose, which artists you choose to emulate, and then what you like to do beyond them. So you're going to end up with 5 to 7 final images for this assignment that will be posted to a WordPress assignment page, and that is going to be due at week 6, day 3, which is on Sunday. So don't hesitate to ask questions as always, and I hope this helped you understand this assignment.